Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 58 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr. It is August 10th, 2022, and for this feature I have Rick Monroe, the singer, songwriter, guitarist of the modern country band Rick Monroe and the Hitmen. Rick Monroe and the Hitmen are currently on tour supporting Ted Nugent. They have released 3 hard-hitting singles this year: Common Ground, World's Gone Crazy, and an awesome cover of the Foo Fighters classic Best of Me. What follows is an exclusive interview with Rick Monroe in which he talks about touring with Ted Nugent, his future plans, his past history, and much, much more. Welcome, everyone, to episode number 58 of the Rock Interview Series. And we have a great special today. We have Rick Monroe with us, and Rick is currently opening up on Ted Nugent's tour right now. You'll be in town in the Buffalo area at the North Tonawanda Riviera Theater on August 14th and August 15th. Rick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Doing really good. A little tired. We had an overnight drive from Pennsylvania to Kentucky, but good. No worse for the wear.
That's great. Now, you've been on tour for a little while with Ted Nugent. How's it going?
It's going great. We got to do a bunch of dates in Florida with him. Then we took about a week off, and now we're back out to finish out the month and finish out the tour. So, and he's awesome. I mean, the guy is amazing. He sounds great. He's funny. Super sweet guy. Very, 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 very nice. Been great with us out on the road. Just a super guy to be out on the road with.
Yeah, and also when you describe Ted Nugent, I think the word misunderstood is also a good word to use in describing him.
Yeah, well, because I mean, people make up their own preconceived ideas, and then they'll read something and just take it as gospel. And no, I mean, he's a very complex individual. He's funny. Like I said, he's really kind, and he's been great to us. So
yeah. Now, we've had a little bit of controversy here in the Buffalo area with the Ted Nugent shows. I'm going to be right up front and let you know that.
Yeah.
Are you aware of what's going on?
Yeah, I've seen some of the thing. Man, you know what? If you don't like them, don't go. If that's, to me, that's the thing. Same thing on the internet. If I don't like a post, I scroll by it. I don't need to get involved in it. If I don't like it, I don't have to go. You don't have to buy a ticket. You don't have to come to the show. I mean, that's pretty simple. If you like it, go to the show. If you don't. And the whole political thing I know has been coming up quite a bit. It's like, music, like he even said, he goes, his thing is to try to like just make people feel better about the situation, because I mean, it's a messed up situation no matter who you are. And I don't know. I think people, if they read a headline, they believe it verbatim. They need to look into the guy a little bit more.
Rick, one of another artist that's making headlines with their political views recently is Roger Waters. Have you heard anything about? Have you been following that story at all?
Well, I mean, is it because, I mean, aren't him and like Eric Clapton and all these guys, aren't they kind of like super anti-vax? Was that kind of what they've been doing?
Well, this isn't really about anti-vax. This Roger Waters is just I think he's gone off the deep end. He's talking like a lot of like pro China, pro Russia talk.
Oh, is that what he's doing? Oh, because
yeah,
the other direction. So no, he's like going like all in for it.
Yeah, he's like, he was very anti-Trump and he's anti-Biden, and now it seems like he's anti-United States. It's crazy. So I want to know how you feel about like politics and the stage. Do you think that's a place for that to be discussed, or should people just go to concerts to like hear the music, and the musicians should kind of like just keep that to themselves? How do you feel about all that?
Well, for me personally, I believe that to go to a concert is so expensive. The world is a mess. We've got a song called World's Gone Crazy.
Yep.
I think my job for me personally is to take people away for a little bit, to have them forget about all the mess. I mean, because you have to get a babysitter, you have to get parking, you have to buy the tickets, you have to maybe buy some merch and beer, and you're spending an ungodly amount of money. And if I can give them a half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour where they don't think about any of that and they just are in the moment, that's my job. Certain people, though, I mean, like Ted is obviously, that's his thing, and that's what people want to come see. Rage Against the Machine is completely the other way. I mean, but that's what people want to see. So if that's your shtick, then that's cool, because that's what people are buying into. But my thing is, I'm a musician. Who gives a crap what I think politically, And it's weird because when I was a kid, you never talked about politics or religion. and people got along really well, you know. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, let's all talk about, you know, all these, I mean, that's why we did a song called Common Ground with Be Still from Nappy Roots. And that was one of the big things we were talking about. He's like, you know, there's only a handful of things that people don't get along about, but there's a lot more that we do. So why focus on these things and then create all this hatred and anger when we could focus on all these great things? Um, so yeah, I'm not a big political person when it comes. People know where I stand pretty much. You know, I mean, it's pretty obvious, and in my affiliations and the people that I work with and stuff. So I'm fine with that. But I'm also not going to sit there and preach to somebody. Like I said, if you don't like what I do, scroll by. I do the same thing if I don't like it. If you don't like Ted Nugent, scroll by. You know, he's got enough fans. He doesn't need, you know, somebody that's angry at him. Doesn't, you know, and he is the complete, he doesn't give an F, you know, I mean, he just does his thing. Yeah, that's really sad about Roger Waters. What does he actually want to like build like the actual wall from the wall? I mean, isn't that what that whole thing was about? Was about like, you know, the whole impending doom of like society coming down on you.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's kind of hard to follow him
Yeah.
nowadays. I don't know if it's I don't understand his politics. I really don't. And it was you know something I saw earlier this week, and it really kind
Yeah.
of surprised me.
Yeah, that's actually pretty sad, you know. And I mean, obviously, if there's something you really feel strongly about as an artist, I think you do need to speak up. But I just think, you know, again, for me personally, I would rather just get up there and entertain people. Obviously, if I see something that's just heinous, I mean, I'm gonna stick to my guns and be on the side that I'm on. But I'm also, you know, but man, it's all about the whole thing to me is about pulling people together. That's one beautiful thing about music. I've toured all over the world, and the one thing that brings people together is music. You know, I can be in Moscow, or I could be in, you know, I could be in Stuttgart, I could be, you know, in Zurich, and I can play a song and people be like, oh, and it brings them together. So I think that's more of what my job is in the world. Um, but you know, I guess if you see an ill, you should call it out.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about what the response has been on stage from you know, you're opening up for Ted Nugent. You know, your music's a little different than Ted's. I mean, you're definitely more country based. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't want to call you a country artist because you are very diverse also. So,
yeah,
you know, you kind of it's not just like strict like, you know, your grandfather's country music by any means. It's
no.
very modern kind of country with a lot of influences. So how does that go over in front of a Ted Nugent audience?
I think it's been going over great. It's been pretty amazing, actually. They've been super. They've just into it, you know. I mean, we've had a really good time. And yeah, you're right. We also set our setup to be a little bit more kicky in the teeth kind of thing, you know, from the first song on. And we know we've covered Ace of Spades by Motorhead. That seems to be a crowd favorite. They're just like, this country band's doing Motorhead. Um, but yeah, everything's been really good. Everything's gone. We've put together a nice set, and the fans have just been really receptive to it. So you know, and then Ted was even, like his guys were saying, you know, that their audience will, if what guy was telling me last night, he goes, if it's real music and it comes from the heart, his fans will tend to gravitate towards it.
Yeah, and they have, so that's great. I want to talk about a couple of songs that you mentioned. Well, first one, let's talk about The World Gone Crazy. I mean, I think that's a super appropriate song title for these days. Tell me a little bit about that song and you know, what obviously the influences I would think was the fact that the world is going fucking crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, you know, the thing was, is it was funny. We were trying to write another song for the album that we were recording, because we recorded a 13 track album, but we've been putting out a song at a time, but we still wanted the whole thing. And the producer's like, man, we need something, you know, just kind of pumping. And Alan Beeler, who's a bass player, and I wrote most of the stuff on the record. We were like, okay, so we're sitting around the house, and just before he came over, I saw the Little Nas X video. I forget the Montello or whatever, the one where he's like doing a lap dance for the devil.
I haven't seen that one yet, Rick. I'll be honest with you.
Don't waste your time. Keep your eyes clean. Keep your mind clean. Don't watch it. Just gonna tell you. I unfortunately watched it, and then I read the story about him selling his blood in his tennis shoes and all these things. And I was just like, that's what I just thought. I was like you said, fucking crazy. There's nothing else I could think of. And my bass player and I were trying to write a song. We couldn't get anything, and I'm finally like, "Have you seen this video?" And I showed it to him. He was dumbfounded. And I think I just said to him, man, this world's crazy. And we just kind of went, all right. And so we've just did that. And then the, you know, the dancing to the devil's do-si-do, taking us to the devil's door, all these things. And it's just kind of like, and it's also, it's not, you know, it's not even a politically slanted song. It's just in general, the world is insane. So
Yeah, and that definitely is so true nowadays. And then I want to talk about the other song too, "Common Ground" that you wrote.
Yeah.
That's another great song. And you mentioned there's a rap artist that's also featured in that song.
Yeah, Be Still from Nappy Roots, man. It was like such a cool thing. My buddies had sent me the track as it was. They're like, hey, we kind of got this country track thing, but we need a hook. So I wrote the hook for it. And then we happened to be in the studio and B's manager was in there. And I was like, hey, man, do you think B would want to do this? He goes, well, let me send him the track and see. He's like, yeah, I want to do it. I'm in nothing for about 4 months. All of a sudden one day he's like, I got it. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I think I got it. I'm like, all right. So we came down to Nashville and man, you just knocked it out of the park. And to me, the cool thing, or okay, the balance thing that you do with art is you try to create something that is a teachable thing that helps people, but not be preachy. I don't want to sit there and wag my finger at you, but I do want to kind of make you think about different things. So with that song, the idea of bringing common ground in without sounding preachy was really difficult. And even B said that. He's like, man, I don't want to do something that's just kind of trite or something that's been done or something that just sounds kind of whatever, And so it was kind of cool. I slow rolled it like, hey, we're just going to hang out. We're going to party. We're going to do some things in common. And he finally hits that one line, a little common ground could unite the states of America. And I was like, that's a home run. So I think he rolled you right into that line in a way that you're like, oh yeah, that's what it is.
Mhm. And I was just wondering, like, how does country radio react to that? I know there've been some crossover country songs where there are rap artists, like
Yeah.
Tim McGraw had that big hit. But how did country radio react to that?
Um, we're not country radio and us, we're not really like on the same footing, I don't think. I think we're a little too like out there for them, but that's
Mm,
fine. I mean, there's it's a big world. And we're a live band and touring. So I mean, we'll see. Maybe one of these days radio will find its way. I just at this point, we're not dumping a lot of money or energy into radio, especially terrestrial.
yeah.
Just because it's such a that's like a casino game and you have to have a lot of money to win. And sometimes even with all that money, you don't win. So I don't know. I just would rather take it to the people and grassroots it because honestly, that's what's missing in the music industry now is there's nobody's invested in anything. If you build a really strong following organically, that's something that can never be taken away from you. That's why you had, such super groups from the 70s, 80s, and 90s even, because it's such a good following. Now it's like disposable. If you don't like it, you don't have to wait in line for a record. You don't have to wait in line for a movie ticket. You know what I mean? You don't have that investment into an artist unless you've gone and seen them live and started following their career. Then you start getting that, and that's kind of I want to go old school with that.
Yeah. Now your introduction into music is kind of interesting because first of all, you come from a family that doesn't have any musicians, right?
Yeah.
From what I read, everyone in your family was a lawyer. Is that correct?
Most of my family are lawyers. Yeah.
Right.
My uncle, my sister-in-law, my brother, my great uncle. Yeah, pretty much everybody was like a lawyer or business person. So I won when I was like 9 years old. My mom got me a drum set and I was like, this is cool. But then I thought, man, I saw Garth Brooks and David Lee Roth in two live videos, like back to back. And I was like, no, that's the job I want. Forget the drum thing. I'm going to do that. And so that kind of started pushing me that direction. And luckily, I had an older brother that had really great music. And, like my mom and my brother both had a lot of really good musical influences and always turned me on to stuff from like Jim Croce to, my brother was the first one to turn me on to, like Metallica or even like Hank Williams Jr. Like you really need to listen to this and just different stuff.
Hmm. Now, pretty much every single artist I've ever interviewed has had one issue when they first started, and that's that they signed a really bad record contract. Now, I'm hoping because of the fact that you have so many lawyers in the family that you were able to avoid all that, like, bad, like, contracts and all that. Is that true?
Well, it's not about bad contracts. It's about signing contracts with people that don't really do their job. That's more of the issue. It's not that the contracts are bad. We can get out of it. There's a lot of people in this industry that basically just sit. It's like they troll. They're just waiting for something to come along to fill up their basket. They don't want to go out and do anything. When the majority of people in this industry want you to do all the work and then sit there and go, "Ooh, look what I did." That's prevalent so much, and it's getting worse. Nobody wants to work for anything. They just want you to do all the work. And once you pop your head up above the crowd, they snap you up and go, "Look what we did." So we know we've been able to get out of any deals that weren't any good. Although we just had a company called Vivo in China stole our song and loaded it to 65 million phones, and we have yet to be able to figure out how to go after them.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
they
that's
hardwired it into the operating system.
what song was that of yours?
This side of you.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Well, I mean, that's on one hand, that's kind of like a compliment.
yeah. I mean, it's cool because we have like fans in Indonesia, China, India, Malaysia, Pakistan. And so it's like, it's funny, like most people, when they want to get like Spotify plays, they go buy them from those places. So one of the guys is like, "Are you buying spins?" I'm like, "No, that's legit. That's from this phone."
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I want to talk about and this is a subject I'm glad as we're moving away from this and then I'm being reminded maybe we're still in it, but the whole COVID pandemic thing, um how did that affect you personally? What were you doing like, right before it hit? And then how did you navigate through the pandemic?
Well, we were actually just on a West Coast tour. We'd had like a band together that we thought was really like the band, and we felt really good about it. We went out west. We did a really good run, and I finally got to get to play Oregon, which was the last state on my list of 50. And everything looked really good. We had a really good calendar coming up. We were starting to put in some bigger things. We were really working because I've always been a solo artist. And so I finally started putting together a band. And this was like a band that wanted to be part of something, which is in Nashville is almost unheard of. You just hire guns. You just hire people. They come out, they do the show, they go home. These guys were like, "Hey, let's do something." So that started happening. Then COVID hit, and we all kind of were locked down together, sort of, because people weren't like intermixing anymore. So we're like, "Well, we've been together for the last 5 months, so we'll just stay." And we started streaming. And we had an engineer at the time, Jim, who just was so good at getting sounds that we were way ahead of everybody else on the streaming curve. So when that first came out, we were killing it. And unfortunately, Jim passed away. And it's just then the streaming thing just started kind of, but as that started phasing out, we got involved with Malcolm Springer and started doing an album. We did a track, God's Ear. It went really well. We started talking about doing the rest of it. And then that's when we got and started cutting. And that's where we found our new drummer. And that's kind of been the band ever since.
Hmm. Now, is there a release date for the new record?
Not really, because like we're just doing song at a time. I know the next song is probably going to be Bad Stretch of the Road. Um, and then we keep throwing curveballs in because we ended up doing a cover of Best of You that wasn't slated. That was something we did on the side. Common Ground was something that was on the side. So none of those were part of the record. The only song we've actually released from the record is two of them, God's Ear and We're Gone Crazy.
I wonder if that's going to be the ongoing trend now with music being released. If artists are just going to, if it's easier, just do one single at a time and just throw out the single, and then maybe once you accumulate enough new tracks, then put it all together on a record.
You would do, yeah. That's what we were thinking. Like once we get enough, we'll go ahead and either do an EP or a record. That way we can go ahead and do vinyl and do pre-orders and all that kind of stuff. And because I think the biggest problem is again because everything's so disposable. You put out a record. Like Smoke Out the Window was the last full record I put out, and I mean I love that record. I love all the tracks on it. I was really proud of it. I think that was the pivotal point as to the sound that we're doing now. And we put it out, and the label just kind of they just fluffed it, and so now that entire record is just gone. You know what I mean? Because one song didn't get on a certain Spotify list. Spotify won't look at anything else because the whole record came out together, and that's it. It's over. Like that's the ball game. And you're like, well, what about? And they're like, no, you already put that record out. So what's next? So as an artist, why would you want to put that much money and time into something that you get one swing at for 12 songs? So it's better to keep putting a song out, and then maybe somebody, will go, hey, curator will wake up one day and go, man, I guess I'll put that on. And unfortunately, we're still completely beholden to them to get. Not that really, I don't think that really does anything in the grand scheme of things, but in our industry, that's their watermark.
Hmm. And how do you feel about streaming services like Spotify? I mean, some artists on one hand look at it like, hey, I'm getting some great exposure, pretty much anyone can listen to it. And other people are like, well, I'm not getting any money at all, hardly, for what I'm putting out.
I always say you can die from exposure. I mean, um, I think it's sad in the sense of, I mean, when you're talking fractions of a penny, I think that's kind of weird. When terrestrial used to pay between 6 to 9 cents, I think, which is Not that much. And you know that these streaming services have that money because no one there gets paid less than six figures. So why wouldn't you just the people? It's weird. It's like the people who literally built the building aren't getting any of the money for building the building, and that to me is weird. Um, I think that some fairness. I mean, I get it. They're putting it out there, and that's all great. And I think they should work hand in hand more. But the content creators, and they have you jumping through hoops to get your content heard so they can make more money. So it is a weird thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably getting myself in trouble by saying all this.
Oh, don't worry, you won't get any trouble from this interview, I promise.
But
But just you being out with Nugent, I mean, you have a big target on your back. I mean, it's, it's
so far we've been pretty. I mean, maybe when we get to Buffalo, people will be upset, but right now we've been pretty good, and people have left us alone. I mean, luckily, he's kind of he's the the target of everybody's ire. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they will come after us a little. But whatever, man. I just I do what I do, and yeah, that's it's just like anything. If you're working and you work hard and you create something, you should be paid for it and reasonable. I mean, I understand. We didn't create the platform and we didn't do the outlets, so they definitely need to make their money. But it would be kind of cool if they were like, "Hey, thanks for making us, all this money, and we should give you some love." And instead of when that Fairness Act came out, they all sued, they all fought, and it's like, man, we're literally talking pennies.
yeah, with all the money that they're making on that is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And a lot of many record and a lot of artists are also are signing these like 360 deals where like Live Nation, for instance, will not just get the touring money, but they're going to get merch money. They're going to get 360 pretty much everything.
Yeah, everything you do. And then the thing is when you get outside deals, like I have a deal with Monster, you get these outside deals and they start tapping into that, and it's like, yeah, but I'm the guy who, like, I'm the face of what they want, and I'm the one who's doing the work. So, but then, man, dude, it all comes down to if Live Nation can put you out there and put you in front of a ton of people, you gotta weigh it out, the balances. I mean, you can't begrudge somebody money for doing something that moves you forward, but it all should be fair. I guess it's just fairness to me is the big thing. I'm not going to sit and rail against people for making money on me because I think it's great, but I also want to make sure that I make my money too. I mean, I've got my wife and my dog to feed and have home and all the other stuff.
Yeah. In researching you, I also thought it was interesting that you've toured with some other controversial artists, not just Ted Nugent. You also toured with Aaron Lewis.
Yeah.
What was that tour like, playing with him?
Aaron was great. Well, the funny thing was he liked to hunt a lot on the weekends, so we almost never played weekends. But we were out for 3 months. It was crazy. He hadn't quite been as controversial yet at that point. Find his way doing the country thing. So I was right there, like just as he was starting to do his first country record. Great guy. I mean, I've been really fortunate, man. I've gotten to tour with Dirk Bentley, Eric Church, Aaron Lewis, Eli Young Band, Lee Brice, Pat Green. I'm toured, not just like open. A lot of bands are like, oh, I opened for, but I mean, I was actually out on the road with these guys for like a couple months. And, I've always had a really great experience with that.
Yeah. Did you ever have a time where it was difficult to win over an audience?
Pat Green's was probably the hardest at first because it's all Texas and they just, they used to be like, Pat fucking Green. You get like 1,000 people yelling, Pat fucking Green at you. First night I didn't know what to do. And Pat's like, don't let them bug you, man. Just do your thing. So I'm all right. So next time they did that, I started chanting it back with him. And I finally said, look, dude, he's not going to come out until I finish my set or until he wants to come out. So I could either play music or we could sit here and, chant this for the next 30 minutes. And they would be like, actually, I got a great story about Pat Green. There's a club up in DC called the 930 Club. It's a really cool venue. It's a cool vibe. And it was me, Randy Houser, and Pat Green doing a show. I come out, and there's two like total like college looking dudes pop their collars and they're sitting there. I get on stage, they turn their back to me and they just go like this. My whole set. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Randy Houser comes out, kills it, same thing. But these dudes do this the whole time. I'm like, well, that's weird. Pat Green comes up and he's doing all his Texas stuff. Then he does a new song from his new record that he recorded in Nashville. And these two dudes turned around and did this, and Pat stops the show. He's like, whoa. You guys, you two. I saw you do it to Rick. I saw you do it to Randy. And now you're doing it to me. And he gets his tour manager to come out and goes, "Hey, bring out some money. How much for the tickets?" Takes the tickets, throws the money at him, and goes, "Get out of my concert."
Wow. That is awesome.
And then Pat comes up and goes, "Did you see what I did?" I'm like, "Oh my God, that was the coolest thing ever."
That is really cool. Wow, that's awesome. I think more people should. Well, I don't know if they want to pay money, but that should be done more often. If there are D-bags at a concert
Yeah.
bringing it down for everyone in the artists like that, get the fuck out, man.
But you know what I did, especially because I was doing the acoustic opening on all these, I would go out before the show and I'd walk up and down like the barricade and just talk to people. They had no idea who I was. I'd be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And then all of a sudden I'd be up in front of them playing and they'd be like, "That's the guy." And then you look for that one dude who's kind of like got his back turned or he's kind of like trying to do his thing and you call him out and be like, "Hey, bro, what's up?" And then you get him into it. And once you get that guy into it, because one person can like poison an entire audience. You know, if they're kind of being like a dick about it, you find them and you kind of, it's like that movie Almost Famous. My job is to find that one person that's not getting off and get them off, you know? And that's
Yeah.
what, you have to be aware of these things, especially as an opener. I mean, when you're the headliner, everybody's there to see you. So
Yeah, I think that is really the difference between a really good engaging artist and one that, is kind of like, just by themselves, not really aware of what's going on. I mean, you look at someone like Garth Brooks. I mean, that guy pulls in people from like the upper level and gets them
yeah,
involved and points
yeah,
at them and points at their sign and reads the sign and does a song that's on the sign. Now, I'm not sure if this is stage or if this is really going on.
he's a
If
pretty
it
good marketing guy, so it might be staged, but still pretty cool either way.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the greatest performers, like even Brett Michaels, like when I see Brett Michaels tonight, I'm sure he's just gonna like, be super engaging with the audience. And that's such a big difference than
Yeah,
someone like, I saw Axl Rose up close with Guns N' Roses and I with Guns N' Roses when they were playing here. And I couldn't believe how detached he was from the whole like performance. It was almost like I was watching some kind of like like droid or something. I mean, he had like
yeah.
no emotion and no like awareness of the audience around him, and he was just kind of like going through the motions. And that was like, wow, that's like that's not really too cool. And it kind of brought me down for the performance. But man, when you get that audience engaged like that, and you're picking people out of the audience and pointing at them and talking to them from stage, I mean that creates a magic during the performance, I
Yeah,
feel.
well, and then our job, especially like as an opening band, is to literally warm the crowd up. Like you got to get the crowd kind of, because I want, by the time Ted goes on stage, I want them to already be hyped. Not that they're already going to be hyped because they're excited to see Ted, but we've already done the little bit of extra like, "Ooh, wow, that was fun, man, that was exciting." And I go, "Oh, now I can't wait for Ted." I want him to come on stage and they're already like there. I don't want him to ever have to like take them from here to there. I want them to be there, and so we can take them, all the way. So I mean, that's how I look at our job as a supporting act. That's why we're supporting.
Yeah, yeah, but not for long. Are you planning on doing any headline dates anytime soon?
I don't know. We'll see. From we're just going to keep doing what we do every day and see what happens, and hopefully, the word will get out and people will dig what we're doing, and it'll make it. I'm not in a hurry to headline because I want to make sure that we have a solid foundation. I'd rather just keep going out and playing and doing, getting in front of people.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good philosophy for the fact that you're playing in front of like thousands and thousands of people, and
Yeah.
I think it'd probably be easier than headlining and playing a club with like a couple hundred.
Right. And I also feel like, and I know we can win people over and we always do. So I'm not afraid of, I mean, hell, we've opened for Queensryche, so it's like, if we can do that and we can open up for the Oak Ridge Boys, I think we're okay.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Not too many bands can do that. I don't think I've ever heard anyone with that much of like a diversity
Yeah,
there.
we've done
Yeah,
that. So,
range. That's a huge range.
and Saliva and Dwayne
Wow.
Yoakam. So,
Well, let me ask you this question. Now, we talked about you having issues, ever having issues with like the audience while you're performing, the difficulty of winning an audience over. Have you ever had a performance that was so intense that the headlining band like kind of said, "Hey, dude, like tone it down a bit. Like we're the headliners." Anything such as that ever happen?
I mean, I've never really run into that. I mean, I don't know if it's been said or not because I mean, that's probably out of my purview. I just do my job and kind of whatever. But I mean, I do think we do push people a little bit. I mean, when we came out, Ted had a set list, and the very next day he came out with Stranglehold as his opener. You know,
Ooh.
and he's like, "Oh yeah, Rick, you think you're cool? Check this out." So I think he was probably like, "All right," because he probably thought, "Oh, we're a country band, we're gonna just like wave on through," and he's like, "Nope, I'm gonna go and kick these kids' ass.
Yeah, well, with Stranglehold, that is that definitely is the
Oh,
top ammunition. I mean, the greatest rock riff ever written in
dude,
all time.
and he sounds so good. I mean, his tone is so good, and he's on fire, man. You would not know that the man's 74 years old.
Yeah. So what lessons have you learned from Ted so far on this tour?
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just love his crew, and I mean, everybody I've ever toured with. I've always noticed that the crew reflects the boss, and you know when there's a good boss because you have a good crew, and you know obviously his crew reflects him, and he's just a genuine good guy. I mean, the very first night of our tour was his wife's birthday, so it's funny. I said, "Hey, we're happy to play for your birthday." She was like, "That's so sweet." Just he's a family guy, and I like that. He's just genuine, and he's very genuine to the people. Like, you know, that's something that, you know, I don't think people understand. Like, you know, he will take time for people. He'll sign whatever. He's just, I mean, I just think that that's a cool thing to that mentality. You know, I mean, the guy's a legend. That doesn't have to do anything.
Right.
He doesn't have to do anything for his fans. Really, he can just show up, play a show, and be gone. But he puts out every night.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. All right. Well, Rick, I want to thank you for the interview. It was great talking to you. So you're playing in the Buffalo area on, like I said before, August 14th and 15th, which is this Sunday and Monday. Everyone get there early because you definitely want to check out Rick Monroe and the Hitmen. And are you going to be hanging out afterwards, signing autographs?
yeah, we do. We like I come out right after our set, and then the whole band comes out after Ted's set. So we yeah, we're there. We want to meet people and try to, you know, get as much face time with people as we can. And yeah, so we'll be around, you know.
Awesome. All
So
right. Well, very good, Rick. I will see you on Monday next week. I'm looking forward to getting blown away by you and your band.
sounds
And
awesome, man.
all right. Thanks again for your time, man. Take it
Thank
easy.
you,
Keep
brother.
rocking. All right.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.